Well, hi there guys and welcome to another video. So guys, there were two videos from me recently, one on the Orange Pi 5 and one on some KeepLink 2.5 gig switches. In response to both of those, I've had people ask me, how did you deploy these? What did you use these for? Could you make a follow-up? Well, this is that follow-up. In short, I got myself a new internet connection from Yaezy Broadband, which has 2 gig down, 1 gig up, and I deployed all of that equipment in making better use of that connection. So I think the best place for us to start is a little tour of the flat to see what I've deployed and where. Well, you can just about see my ONT down there, connected to the City Fibre network. It has some LEDs on there, which is great. It has a fibre going into it. It also has an RJ45 2.5 gig Ethernet port, out of which I've run a cable to the other corner of the room where I've put my router. And this is that router, an Orange Pi running Ubuntu. And it's great, apart from the LED on the front. There's a red one, a green one and a blue one. The blue one, by default, flashes to keep alive, but fortunately that can be changed with a parameter. The red will never go off though, and so I put a sticker over the front to make it less noticeable. What a lovely box. Now that we've seen the box, let's see what's going on the box. Logging in. It's called Jaffa because Jaffa's a type of orange, so that's funny. So first thing to note, if we look at the network interface, net 0, and we can see the speed is 2.5 gig. If we look at network interface number 1, we can see the speed is 2.5 gig. That's good. If we look at the interface configurations, we can see net 1 is the outside interface, net 0 is the inside. I've given myself a private IPv4 address on the inside and a private IPv6 address on the inside. The outside has got a VLAN sub-interface, 911, and over that interface my ISP provides a DHCP'd IPv4 address to me, and it does do IPv6 router announcements that advertise a prefix that I can EUI64 auto-configure from, but there's a bit more story to the IPv6. It doesn't work. And by not work, I mean if I ping something on the outside, a box under my control where I'm running TCP dump, I see my ping from here arrive, and I reply. The reply never gets there. And if I trace route from the outside to something on the inside, then I don't get past what I think is the BGP edge at my ISP. So this must mean, at the very least, obviously they've configured router announcements, the IGP must be set up at least with a default route to the edge, and the BGP speakers are obviously announcing to the rest of the internet. But yeah, maybe the BGP speakers aren't learning IGP routes for IPv6. I don't know. I mean, I was only a network engineer for 9 years. Your guess is as good as mine. Contact support, they say, oh, we don't support IPv6. And I'm thinking, well, 1, it's 2024, that's a ridiculous statement to make. 2, you almost support IPv6. You support it enough that it's bad, because it gives the impression of being supported. Now, I assume if you plug in their ISP supplied router that I've not even taken out the box yet, it just has IPv6 globally disabled, and so most people are blissfully unaware. But anyway, not a good configuration to have things in. I did mention this to the support person who said they passed it on to the network team. Cheers. Probably about time I followed up on that ticket and find out how far in 2024 we have to get, or 2025, or whatever year before they turn it on. Anyway, right, the next piece of the configuration of relevance is just the global enablement of IPv4 forwarding and IPv6 forwarding, for what it's worth. Not that I'm doing router announcements under my network from this box, because it wouldn't work. I'm still having to use my old connection for IPv6, which is only 80 meg down and 20 meg up, so a far cry from the 2 gig down, 1 gig up, so I'm not really doing much IPv6 at the moment. So yes, that's the global enablement of that. And then lastly, I have an NF tables configuration, which is relatively basic, and it's just doing IPv4 NAT against the outside interface. I mean, there's an equivalent IPv6 piece of configuration in there, but it's not really doing anything at the moment. And then just some, just allow port 22
from the outside, and some boilerplate other configurations that you might expect to see on a router, and the same for IPv6. Not that it really makes much difference. So anyway, that's how that's set up. It's just an Ubuntu server 2404, nothing special on there. In fact, you might argue that the spec of the processor and memory in the Orange Pi 5 are a little bit overkill for this purpose, but anyway, I didn't get it for that, I got it for the fast interfaces. So, that's that.
With that said, we can now look at the first of the KeepLink switches, the 8-port 2.5 gig variant. It connects down from my Orange Pi, and it has a few things plugged into it. It has my wife's PC plugged into it at 2.5 gig. It has my old router to my old DSL line still connected. It has various other things, and then it has the connection to the upstairs at 2.5 gig. Before we look at the second KeepLink switch, there is a further switch connected to the first KeepLink switch, which is this 1 gig Netgear switch, which has my projector attached PC connected to it. I wonder if I should think about upgrading that to 2.5 gig, because this PC does run Steam, and so we do need lots of bandwidth for downloads. But also coming out of this switch as well, we have one of my access points, one of my Unify boys up here. So here we are in the bedroom on top of a wardrobe, which is where we find the second KeepLink switch, one of the 5-port ones. One side going to the first KeepLink switch downstairs that you just saw, the other side going over to another room. Then we have a direct connection into this USB 2.5 gig, which goes to this Dell machine, which has got a 4TB SATA SSD, which provides file services to the network. Then there's an uplink to a 1 gig switch, a Netgear that I have here, and in that we have this Raspberry Pi 4, which is a Kodi home theatre installation, connected via HDMI to a television just behind the camera, which is visible from the bed. Another connection into this, which is my Unify wireless access point, and then another connection to the television. And I think that's about it for what we have on top of the wardrobe. Of note, the aforementioned cables coming out of my top of wardrobe switch, while the one that goes downstairs does just run along the side of the room, hole drilled down through the ceiling along the side of that room, the one that goes to the neighbouring room, because it goes across the top of my stairs, and I didn't want a tripping hazard, is actually structured cable, and it runs under the floor and all that. Mild dust accumulation on top of this box. A bit of dust accumulation over here too, and dog hair and cobwebs, all in the areas that people never see. So yes, this is the other side of the top of stairs structured cabling. This is where it comes out and off to the switch in this room. And so here in the final room we find KeepLink switches 3 and 4, both 8-port switches. Didn't seem to be a 16-port version to buy, so small cable connecting those two up. Cable off to the bedroom, of course, and then a few things directly plugged in here, some of which are 2.5 gig capable, others not. So for example, we have my Mac Mini, which runs a hypervisor for some of my smaller VMs, my Gen AI Play machine, my wife's work machine that she accesses remotely, my dual Xeon Beefy machine that I use, a Raspberry Pi 5 that I haven't yet figured out what I'm going to put on the screens. And here, the 5th and final KeepLink switch, one of the 5-port boys. This doesn't really need to exist. I could have just run cables slightly longer back to those last two switches. But this has my Dell machine here, plugged into it, which is usually turned off. It's a backup target that I just turn on when I need to do backups. It has a couple of spinning birds in it, and I just back VMs up to it and just mirror my file server to it as well. And also my RISC-V SBC is plugged in here because this is just the shelf that I had space on to put it. Almost forgot to mention the final computer in the final room, my day-to-day use desktop machine, which actually has a 10 gig NIC in it and is connected back to one of them boys with a SFP Plus transceiver. Nice. While processing those previous scenes, I noticed that my bedroom carpet was looking a bit worse for wear. Now, there's no way I could replace the flooring in the bedroom because the room is chock full and there's nowhere for the things in the room to go. It would be impractical. But I've played lots of The Sims and I know you can get the design tool out and just recolour things, and I thought surely that must be possible in the real world, so I looked it up, and this product here, Fabric Oat, can recolour fabrics. So I thought I'll buy 4 tins of it and give it a go. So I got my trusty paintbrush. This paintbrush is ruined now, and I painted the carpet. Not a great first attempt, but it's decent but patchy. I'll add another coat of the Fabric Oat, see how I get on. Anyway, this is all irrelevant, isn't it? So, in short, Orange Pi running Ubuntu, excellent router for a 2 gig internet connection. Keeplink 2.5 gig unmanaged switches, excellent, do the job perfectly, can't fault them, get full speed out of them, very nice indeed. Didn't get the managed version, so I couldn't really comment on that, but yes, what I've got, absolutely excellent. Anyway guys, that's about it for this video. Perhaps you could comment below and let me know what speed internet connection you've got, and what ISP you've got, and whether you're happy with it, and whether you need greater than gig networking in your home to support it. Anyway guys, I hope you found it interesting and informative. I certainly look forward to seeing you in the next video, but until then guys, there's very little more for me and my brush to say, except, well, goodbye.